Hey guys, Nephthys is kind of weird, man. It's kind of like the opposite of what we saw yesterday. You remember yesterday we saw like triple Phantom Howl, Shadow, Aggro Shadow, and now we're seeing Nephthys, man. That's so weird, right?
Yeah, it's just like been nothing but aggro shadow, and even on top of that, when a control-y shadow list like Nephthys shows up, I completely expect it to include 4 half the time to have Ceres in there. But nope, not this time around, just 2, 3, 7, 8.
I actually like that a lot. Twilight Queen, have you played a Twilight Queen Nep deck? I don't know, it feels kind of weird. Like sometimes you Twilight Queen and you hit like double Cowie and you're like, yeah, dude, that felt so good. And then other times it's like, this thing feels so bad. I don't want to play this at all. Like, I don't
Right. Something it reminds me of actually is I think Twilight Queen has this weird interaction with Nephthys, where the order in which cards are pulled out determines which one she actually activates on. Similar to like the Round Table and Sword. It's like Twilight Queen will give you her immediate effect on the next thing it pulls out, and that is just like, it's not very consistent as compared to just bringing a list like this.
Yeah, exactly. The ordering could just like totally mess. Like you could get double Mords, right? Or you could trigger, you know, it could trigger on double Lurching Corpse, which I guess is kind of okay. But you had to play this weird 4-drop to get it off, right? So it just doesn't seem totally worth it.
So
I do like that both blood decks got banned, though. That's good. Let's see. So we should be going to the game soon. Let's see. Nephthys versus, I don't know. I mean, Nephthys versus, what is this? Dirt Rune, and then also Mid Shadow. It's weird. It really is so weird. We're seeing Mid Shadow and Nephthys and no aggro.
Yeah, it's like previously I had been so accustomed to seeing the transition of Shadow to getting faster and faster. I think Mid Shadow's just kind of been around forever. But Nephthys is like, usually it's a deck that makes a lot of sense to me to bring when you're trying to counter things like Control, just because it's an infinite value generative sort of deck. But really, it's Eplicas himself who is like so far from what I'm looking at that is like the man who brought nothing but Control.
Right, yeah. I mean, he brought, you know, he brought 3 Control decks, I think it was even. And just something also, you know, we keep talking about Nephthys, but we haven't seen this deck in forever. He brought, not only did he bring, you know, so many weird decks, he like Nephthys, he brought probably the weirdest one we could have seen, so.
Now, how do you think Nephthys, especially with this sort of build, actually interacts with Burn Dirt? Because this is actually a matchup I know just like middling amounts about. I think we discussed it yesterday, where at best Cowie can only heal you so much if it's your only source of healing.
Yeah, Cowie will always kill the largest attack follower, tongue-tied, or if something's tied, something, you know, something of the largest. But Burn Dirt Rune doesn't really summon anything bigger than Oz, I think I said yesterday, and Evolved Oz has 6 attack. I think that's about as big as it gets, right?
Only tied by like Master Mage Levi, also at 4.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's not like Nephthys pulls, you know, she can pull Cowie, obviously, which does pop that follower off the board. It does heal you. But 6, it's nothing like killing a Bahamut, right? Like if you Nephthys a Bahamut, ooh, you're gonna full heal almost, right? But it's nothing like that.
Though I guess it's easy to just like, when we think about Nephthys, to think especially about, okay, so in a matchup where you're trying to play for life the entire time, you really want to get Cowie on something huge. But then again, I think every time that we actually like looked at this matchup yesterday, it really came down to like mid-game interactions. Like, for example, dealing with this Magic Illusionist seems like a really tough spot for Eplicas to be in.
Yeah, the mid game is obviously very important, and I think honestly cutting the Twilight Queen there too. I love, because the mid game is so important for Nephthys. I actually love cutting Twilight Queen, because when you draw into her, she doesn't do anything for you, right? Like Ceres was a card they were playing because the mid game was so important, right? But it just kind of messes with Nephthys too much, you know. It doesn't feel good, so.
Right. It's like even a scenario like this, just going off that, is like Ceres would help out a lot here, I think. Just because the Magic Illusionist puts in ticks of damage every turn, but Ceres is like one of the few cards in Shadow that can just shut him down, like either disallow him from dealing that much damage throughout the entire time, and he can't trade into her.
Right, yeah. I mean, I would agree completely. Ceres would have been amazing there because you'd have to evolve Illusionist to do positive damage anyway, since Ceres heals for 2 every turn. But it looks like Eplicas just found a complete clear anyway. I mean, he pulled it off almost. That was
Mhm.
pretty impressive without the Ceres.
Yeah, it was fortunate to be able to just like mash Soul Squasher because I guess even though I was talking up Magic Illusionist a second ago, like that is its huge downside is that it can be manipulated in a way that just deprives you of sigils on the exact turn where you want to slam Master Mage Levi.
Right, and we saw that right there. Master Mage Levi did come down and didn't do anything really outside of kill that ward. But Eplicas is he's getting in a really bad spot.
Hmm.
I mean, he's got a second Soul Squasher, but Mofu, I don't know. He's getting close to dying here.
Yeah. So if we look at Fantasy's hand here, assuming he loses his board across this turn just from a second Soul Squasher into the Evolve, and we still find him in a situation where Master Mage Levi has another 3, and then he's going to need the Oz to pull something more. It's like not he doesn't have the setup in hand, but it's still like a really good spot to be in.
I agree completely. I think this is about as amazing, especially if you can do this. This looks incredible. And he actually gets the Master Mage this time.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Puts Eplicas in this really, really tough position where he can't immediately deal with the 4/4 body that Master Mage Levi leaves behind, and he used up all of his shadows on the Soul Squashers, so the Death Breath isn't really a protective element here.
Right, and that Death's Breath is a very, very important card. Sometimes, if it doesn't just get Master Mage Levi away, 2 have happened, so it's not like it's gonna happen again. But that's a really important point, right? He can't get the ward off of that, so he's forced to use the Grimner that he saved, thankfully, to block that 4/4 body that he can't get rid of.
Right. Ugh. I don't know though. With Wizardess of Oz coming in, it's very, very easy.
Oh no!
Scratch that.
Always lucky.
It's easy to just kind of like accredit it always to Oz whenever Burn Dirt's just about to get it in there, but at the same time, Halo Golem exists.
Halo Golem is a really good card to draw when your opponent has a 3 life, and that was just unfortunate. A Burn Dirt rune is so strong, right?
I think we've like only seen it win, or at least there's been a couple
it feels
of exceptions.
That way. It does feel that way.
Yeah. Or like I'm probably biased just because when we watched Suzzoni just chuck like a triple demonic strike off of it into a win yesterday, I'm just like nothing can beat this probably.
Yeah,
it's been like my impressions.
It wasn't even. It was 4 of them. Remember, he did 4 because he had the Crimson Sorcery as well. So. So this is actually traditional Saha ramp. We've cut the PDKs. We're back into Saha ramp, and now we're against Mid Shadow this time. Saha ramp. Mofu, talk to me about PDK. I'm a very vocal anti-PDKer. I run the anti-PDK club, right? What do you think of PDK?
In order to keep my opinion clean in front of someone who leads the anti-PDK club, I think it's still actually kind of okay. But I am noticing this huge trend where players have mostly cut it. We saw it a couple times, or was it just once yesterday? And we also saw it fail yesterday. Ever since Prime Dragon Keeper got increased to a 4-cost card, which didn't seem like that alone would be this huge sweeping change that would just cut it from everyone's decks. I think what really started to position it out of tournament play was just that it's difficult once you hit Overflow to play a 4-cost card and then also play a decent series of other cards and get its effect activated enough times to come back into the game. And so it doesn't really surprise me that we see Saha ramp now, they just cut it from the list entirely.
Right, it is extremely difficult actually, in fact, it turns out it is very hard to trigger the effect when it does cost 1 more. Not only that, but if you you can't even play it early anymore. Used to it was a 1/5 also, remember that? It's a 1/3 now, so you can't play it early against aggro. It's not a good card to just play. It's not this toolbox, juggernaut that it was before against everything.
Yeah, a way you actually described it before completely opened my eyes to it, where back when it did cost 1/5 and you tried to evaluate just what you got out of the card, was I remember you said the rest of the effect is being weighed as 0 cost because its stat line was already passing the vanilla test by pretty decent amount. But
right.
now I
to
guess
explain that a little bit, the vanilla test is every play point in Shadowverse is worth 2 stats. So Belinus, a 2 play point 2/2. That's 4 stats you'd expect because he costs 2. So the effect of his last words is 0. His 1 damage effectively costs nothing. And the old Prime Dragon Keeper, who was a 3 play point 1/5, had 6 stats. So the entire text box was realistically free, basically.
And I guess that just comes down to sometimes classes have cards that just kind of do get around that rule in order to, it's like you're playing this class and you're locked to these cards, so you just get this for free. But yeah, it seems like since that nerf actually happened, we're just seeing, especially in NA, it just being cut from all the lists. I guess it's like we could just attribute that to it doesn't really work as a win condition anymore. You still, or now you end up just winning with the other parts of the deck, like Zeus, Bahamut, just these massive neutral win cons, and just it goes back to focusing on that, so it's not needed anymore.
I think the fact that it can't work as a win con is actually a huge, contributing factor to why you just can't spam it anymore. Because I got to Grandmaster playing that mostly, right? And it was exactly that. Like Prime Dragon Keeper before was a win condition, and it's just not anymore, unfortunately, for Dragon. This board looks insane, Mofu.
This board looks really familiar to me. It's I'm feeling very at home seeing something like this.
A lot of
I'm in my
skeletons
comfy
on the
space.
board, yeah.
But that said, one really unfortunate thing when you're playing Dragon in your face with a board like this is that he's top 11 cards, hasn't found 1 copy of his Breath of the Salamander, so he just has to respond to it with Sybil, just the only thing in his hand that gives him any defensive utility.
At the dance's end.
Sybil, a very important card. And I mean, Saha Ramp is it's a deck that has a lot of defensive options, but like you said, it's not drawing any of them outside of this one Sybil, so that's it's a bit unfortunate for him.
So how do you think he develops from here after going for that? It's like Dragon as a class always gets a little bit of breathing space on the turn after it plays Sybil. The 3 health is just such a huge heal considering the 20 life total in this game. But after that, can't go for Zeus. He could pop a staircase. Never mind. I guess his draw answers that.
Well, I would have to say his answer now is to evolve the Sisterfill, freshly drawn Mofu. That's his answer.
Right. I guess the only drawback of Sisterfill sometimes is when it can't fully clear a board, but still, even just tearing apart all of the skeletons hidden behind the skeletons here is enough to send Fantasy's position to, like, has a Necro Assassin in hand to deal with it, but I think this denies him of so much damage and sticking power that he really starts to, it's like we saw players in this position before playing Mid Shadow yesterday, where it's like, once you're out of resources, it just comes down to drawing, like, high value cards.
Right, we did see this quite a few times yesterday, actually. It was basically, can they outdraw one another? But this is kind of like where Ramp Dragon can start to pull back ahead. That was such an instrumental turn, because now he just slaps down this Zeus, and what even does Fantasy do, Mofu?
Trades in his entire board, or gets that Ether. Ideally, I'm pretty sure that's what he'd be crossing his fingers for here.
Oh, you got the exact opposite, Mofu. Why did you curse him? Come on.
I think that's just something about the deck sometimes. You run too many skeletons, you just start drawing them. Like, or at least Skull Beast is something that it's like so instrumental to Shadow because it offers you the shadows you need early on for things like Soul Squasher and other similar tools. But like any other low statted vanilla or the equivalent thereof, it's just like in a top decking situation like this, having this huge quantity of them can just be the difference of losing to control.
Right. I mean, the deck is full of many important cards, Skull Beast being obviously very important, especially because he was on the play. He would have loved to have one turn 1, but now it's just, now you don't want to see it at all.
So, like, going off of that, in a position where you just, I'm feeling like he needed, in that exact position, to have an answer ready for Zeus, like an Aether off the top. Do you think it's still possible to come back into this game if he gets something next turn?
I definitely think it is still possible. I also think, what do you think of how defensively even he's playing? He's clearing with the Zeus twice now. Oh gosh.
I'm thinking that that's perfectly reasonable. There's a lot of situations like this where, especially against Shadow, a class that doesn't really end up having tools that, like, right off the top when it's out of cards already, is going to start just drawing more. It's like you can't top deck a Wizardess of Oz or go for this huge sudden back into the game from nowhere play. If he loses his board, and that's it, then tools like Ether just become that much less impactful for him. So I guess what Eplicas is thinking is, if I just keep his board clear, then how do I lose?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you do keep, literally, if you keep their board board clear, how do you lose? And even top decking a second Bahamut. Oh my gosh, this looks over. I mean, this is kind of like what I said before, where Dragon just kind of starts to come back into it, and he's finally done his first bit of damage here. His first sticking bit of damage.
Like, he has his win cons lined out, 2 Bahamut's, like that pretty much answers anything Fantasy could put out, short of a sudden Tyrant out of the sleeve. Triple Bahamut's, in fact.
Triple Bahamut's topping the Staircase to Paradise too. He could pop his own Staircase after going face for 4, and just, he can literally set up the game right now.
But 28 Shadows, you know, just 2 more and he could activate a Path to Purgatory.
Path to Purgatory wouldn't even be enough damage, Mofu. It wouldn't do anything. That's come on, Mofu. Another Zeus.
I mean, when you get the Shadows, yeah, but finds the Zeus. It's like such a huge chance for him too after popping his own Staircase like that.
Eplicas. That's wow. That Staircase led to a lot of Storm. He even had a Dragoon Scyther that he could have done that with, but Fantasy leaving the game before Eplicas can finish him off. I think that was
it takes like I don't know when they changed it, but it's like, it's actually impressive to get that concede APM in there. It's like they have added this like delay to after you hit concede that your opponent still gets like a solid 5 seconds to try to hit for lethal.
This is Mofu. When's the last time we saw a Shadowcraft mirror? Not even a mirror, actually. It's Nephthys versus Mid Shadow. What year is it, Mofu?
I mean, I thought it was in the year of our Lord 2017, but like Nephthys still exists, so clearly I'm mistaken.
Why are they not playing? Why are they not playing Skeleton Shadow? Have they not heard of Skeleton Shadow?
They haven't heard the word. That's it. It's like, it's the best deck in Shadowverse.
Is Skeleton the word, Mofu?
It is. It is. I mean,
Skeleton's
look
the
at
word.
that.
Okay.
Mordecai in the opening hand. That's what you want every single game, really.
That's not what you want at all, Mofu. You don't want Mordecai in the opening hand ever.
Yeah, these players are even using the Mordecai leader. That's why you don't see the power of it. But something that surprises me a lot is we saw a lot of Mid Shadow yesterday. We never actually saw a single mirror of the class.
Right. We saw a lot of aggro Shadow. I don't recall a mirror though. Even you're right. I don't recall one. Although I also have about as much memory as a squirrel. So, you know.
Me too. I have basically the memory of a goldfish sometimes. But in the matchup between Mid Shadow and Nephthys, this is actually one that I find immensely difficult to call. Perhaps because, like, as we haven't really seen any mirrors, I don't really play either of these decks. I'm just a lowly or woke skeleton player. Which way do you think that this one's gonna go?
Woke skeleton player, yeah, not lowly. I don't know. I think I'd have to give this one to Nephthys. I think that, you know, right around 7, where they want to play Ikter or Thane, is right around where, you know, Nephthys Cowie's popping, right?
Yeah, I was thinking on the top of my head that Nephthys also probably has it because, like, part of the whole identity of Mid Shadow is it works so well because it grinds games out better than any other mid-range deck that tries to go for a I'm not necessarily an aggro deck sort of playstyle, and Nephthys just sits there just completely unimpressed. It really just cannot spare care.
Completely 100% unimpressed. Nothing grinds better than Mordecai the Duelist. Duels never end with Mordecai the Duelist.
Though having one in hand does actually sometimes make it like this weird situation where Nephthys could just drop both of them. But like, it feels nostalgic saying that because I remember Nephthys used to be so much more popular back in the day and like or like launch of Rise of Bahamut like tournaments.
She was definitely much more popular. She was at one point the way we played Shadowcraft. Remember that? She was like the Shadowcraft deck. And then Tempest happened. Was it Tempest or Tempest was Ikter, right? I think.
Yeah, Tempest was Ikter. And the original Ikter was just
Yeah. Just so much better, unfortunately, for Nephthys. But I mean, we see her back now, so.
So there's a card in Eplicas' hand, which I've been staring at this entire time, specifically because I like the animated art of it a lot. How do you actually feel about running Test of Strength in this? I think this is the first time I've even seen the card attempted in a list like this.
I think I've seen it before, and I think it is fairly actually common at the moment to play Test of Strength with Dark Alice, who is essentially a Mordecai, so it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm. And that
I like how you mentioned it. We get an early usage of it here. It's going to give ward to all these skeletons. That's pretty neat.
yeah. What I like is, I guess we can't really see it because it's a little bit... I can kind of see it if I squint, but the demon's jaw is like shaking vigorously in that art.
Yeah.
But
that art is really good.
Part of the idea I have of Test of Strength is like, at least in the case of Dark Alice, it tears apart all the Shadowcraft cards in your deck, tosses them into the ocean off the boat, and then after that point, you're guaranteed basically to draw into your copies of Test of Strength and Prince of Darkness. And a deck like this, though, I think Eplicas has just popped in one of them as just like a backup plan. Doesn't even really save it for Mordecai or anything.
Right. I think honestly he was trying to bait him into flooding the board right there. You know, like why even save this Test of Strength if I can get him to flood into this Foul Tempest, which was just massive right there. That was insane.
Is using Test of Strength to bait the opponent into flooding, like that's the first time I've actually seen it now that you mention it. Is that what you would do if your opponent just suddenly slammed like the arm wrestling amulet on you?
I mean, how could they pass up summoning a bunch of zombies, Mofu?
It's very true.
How could they pass it? They even have ward. He gets a free Death's Breath. This guy gave me a free Death's Breath. I'm taking it. Of course he did that, Mofu. Come on.
And I guess I mean it's open decklist, so he knows he has a Foul Tempest, but that's another card I have never seen really. This is actually a really creative deck. The more I actually look into the literal intricacies he's put in here.
It is in fact open decklist. They both know about everything. That's it's also Eplicas is doing the exact opposite. Have you played Nephthys, Mofu? Have you gotten the effect of what Eplicas is doing right now? He's drawing the deck backwards at the moment.
I've never once played it, but I do see it, I feel it, and I empathize.
It is, for those of you who don't know what I mean by that, he's drawing the cards that Nephthys wants to summon from the deck instead of drawing Nephthys herself, which is very bad.
Well, at the very least, managed to slide into an acceptably strong turn 8. I guess that, it's weird to look on this in hindsight, but Test of Strength into Foul Tempest actually worked so well for him that he was able to just play a Death's Breath on 8 and pass, and then just evolve a Mordecai on 9. And I'd say he's actually in a pretty fantastic position here with that.
I would say that too. I would imagine this position is fine, but Thane, Mofu, Thane is a very good card. His position may be okay, but Thane's an okay card too. So he's also out of evolves now too. So
right, Thane puts so much pressure on his life total, but I don't know. Man Eplicas has got options here. He has an activated Death's Breath. He can play Kali out. I mean, Nephthys might be kind of cool if he were to draw a copy of that one, but
if he were to draw a copy of Nephthys at all, yeah.
Yeah, if he were to draw his win condition, maybe he'd be in a pretty good spot, but I think he's still doing fine here.
He would draw the card that he built his entire deck around. Right. Oh boy. I don't know. I'm starting to come around to your side of this. I think he seems kind of okay. I feel it. I'm digging what you're putting down here.
Yeah. If you feel what I'm saying, this is actually a situation that I remember I struggled with a lot when I was first learning the game, even back in the olden days of Darkness Evolved, before the days of Nephthys and Eekter or anything. The win condition that Shadow had was this man right here, Mordecai, and getting Mordecai down in the mirror was the end of the mirror.
Definitely. I remember those days too, Mofu. That was my first main faction with Shadowcraft, and I thought Mordecai was a bit too slow at first. I didn't like him at first, but then, I came around to duels never ending.
Then you Erd him, and you have 2 duels going on at the same time. You can't even manage that much action.
Or you play 2 and Erd both of those and have 4 duels going on at the same time.
You board lock yourself with the quadruple Mordecai.
Is that even a bad thing if you board lock yourself? Board locking yourself with Earth Sigils is bad, obviously, but board locking yourself with Mordecai's, do you even care?
Well, if your opponent plays Test of Strength, which they now can do, and then they play their own Mordecai, then that's just the epitome of duel.
Oh my gosh. What's funny about that too is they could play Bahamut and just couldn't do anything ever. It'd be so adorable.
Isn't that like, I think that was actually a relevant thing back in the day, like in Rise of Bahamut's day, everybody had their eyes on Bahamut mostly. It was like the first time we'd seen a win condition of that caliber that everyone could use. And then some people just realized, oh wait, we can just double Mordecai and it's fine. And then they'd lightning blast.
Yeah, and it can't ever do anything. Quite the adorable card. Fantasy going really wide this turn. Oh boy. Mofu, what do you think Fantasy's chances are of actually finishing this game out?
At a glance, I mean, these turns are strong turns. Like, he's gotten onto the board, and really it just comes down to whether this Eekter has a board at the end that he can actually slam face. But I'm thinking the main thing that's going to bite Fantasy in the back here is just that Eplicas still has, or at least he actually just drew a copy of Kawi, but he also had a Death's Breath in hand. He has ways to protect himself from any of the bonus damage that Eekter could be throwing in here. So I think, despite his very low life total, he has ways out of this.
Right, I agree completely, especially now that, you know, the white is off the board. The white was chipping Eplicas down pretty hard, but that Death's Breath, like you mentioned, is just going to come down and put 9 effective health on the board. And I agree. I don't really think, even with Eekter, that this is that big of a deal.
Yeah. So let's count this out here. He does have enough shadows for the zombies to appear, but in order for that to happen, he needs to get rid of some board space. He can send one of his 3 attack followers into one of the wards that takes care of it. I guess he doesn't really get too much out of sending. We could send in the other skeleton, clear that. Slams Eekter. I think he gets 1 zombie from that. Then the zombie slash skeleton can hit the 3rd one. Is that... I'm like playing leapfrog with my own brain here, but that... Alright. Let me actually bust out my advocates here. I think he actually has like a super good spot here, but I'm not sure if it's lethal.
I think the easiest way to do it would be 3 defenders on board, 3 attackers, plus 1 extra. You have to kill the 3 defenders, and you only have 3 attackers on the board at once, so... He can get in for 5, but... So I agree, he's in a great spot, I do agree with that, but the quick thing there was that 3 wards were blocking 3 followers, so he couldn't he couldn't actually get in for more than 1 follower, so...
At the very least, though this puts him in like this immensely good spot where he has like a full board, a skeleton that has a skeleton that's like actively rattling inside of itself, but it's falling to pieces. Belinus manages to double clear, and Kawi's here to block the way.
And that last sentence you said right there, and Kawi's here to block the way, is such an important one, because not only does that, you know, it stops the Eekter, but it kills him and heals Eplicas for 5, so it puts him out of lethal range.
Actually, if he didn't have this Kawi immediately, that was it. He didn't have the options to actually fully clear all out of that.
Right, that could have been... He didn't have the options, you're right. That was a very close game. And a Thane even top deck by Fantasy. He's trying so hard right now.
I think that Thane is actually super massive here. Like, super massive here.
And then Death's Breath. Oh,
so he has to clear, right? He has to clear both whites here. The Death's Breath changes this a lot. I think he was actually facing down his own death there.
He was hoping for a top deck. Let's be fair, you know, he was looking at his own death, right, Mofu? But he hasn't drawn a single net in 21 cards. So, if we're being fair, you know, it was either this or the Death's Breath. Something was going to happen. Something was going to shake.
Right. Something was going to rattle, so to speak.
Right, yeah, some bones were gonna rattle. I like the way you think. I like the cut of your jib there.
So if he were to find Nephthys, he has 1 Kawi left, and that's a pretty promising line for finding some healing. But he's still working this through.
It's not only a promising line, it's a guaranteed line. I'm 90% sure he doesn't have any other 7 drops, but he's still not drawing it, Mofu. Oh my gosh.
Still not finding it. Like, Little Soul Squasher, I have made my opinion upon this card clear, I think, over the past, and that this is like just one of the most fantastic cards Shadow's ever been given. But in a situation like this, where you're deep into the late game, in a Shadow Mirror, it's really just a fighter. That doesn't actually have an effect, because your opponent's not evolving anymore.
It is, they're exactly. Not anymore, Mofu. Yeah, not anymore.
They finally stopped. They finally cut it out.
They finally cut it out. But I mean, 2 Mordecais. Can they keep cutting it out against 2 Mordecais? Oh no! You know, I didn't even know that he still played Grimner, actually.
We saw him use a Grimnir before actually, but like he plays 3 of them. So the situation we're looking at right now is a situation that he probably just is actually completely planning for. Is that he wants a 3-cost card that he can throw out some copies of early. That just
was that his plan, Mofu? His plan was to put 3 Nephthys in his deck, build his entire deck around it, and then just never draw one in 24 cards. That was his plan, Mofu?
Yeah, that was his plan. As you can see, you know, Grimnir shows up, and he was the plan all along. He's the win condition, and he's gone. So, you know, Eplicas loses his entire advantage, his win condition. He definitely can't win this one anymore.
He definitely can't win. Yeah, I think he's totally fine. He draws his 3rd Cowie, 2 Mordekais even before a Nephthys. Oh my gosh. Was that even a Nep deck, Mofu?
Honestly, that looked, with some exception, like straight out of Darkness Evolved. He played Mordecai, then he played Mordecai again, and that was it. He took it.
And that was it. He took it for sure. Double Mordecai, triple Cowie. What does Exo think of that? Oh.